Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Spinal Hygiene Podcast. I'm Dr. Tabor Smith, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about this very important question, and that is it possible for you to lower your risk of spinal degeneration? Is there something that you could do? Is there something that your family could implement that might lower your risk of the devastating disease of spinal degeneration? And in order to answer this question, we actually go back to dentistry. And back in the early 1900s, we talked about this a little bit already, but tooth decay was rampant. It was everywhere. Everybody by the age of 20 were having their teeth pulled. And so dentists began to ask the question, is it possible to lower the risk or even implement some preventative measures that might slow down or prevent tooth decay? And the way they went around this and the way they answered this question is they used a process called deductive reasoning. Meaning if we can find out what causes spinal degeneration, then we can answer the question, can it be prevented or can the risk of it be lowered? Dentistry, no different. They said, well, what is the cause of tooth decay? And then once they answered that question, which it was answered in the late 1800s, it was discovered that a bacteria builds up in the teeth, and a byproduct released by that bacteria is acid, and that acid would deteriorate the teeth and it would cause, accelerated tooth decay. So then through deductive reasoning, they found that if that acid from a bacteria breaks down and decays the tooth, then what measures could they begin installing in people's life? What measures could they take that could prevent tooth decay? Now, that's exactly what I want to talk to you about today, is if spinal degeneration is so prevalent, which we know it is. We talked about the prevalence of spinal hygiene already, the crazy statistics that are being released right now. 96% of 80-year-olds have spinal degeneration. 85% of 50-year-olds, 37% of 20-year-olds, and 9% of 10-year-olds have spinal degeneration in today's society because of our sedentary lifestyles, our poor posture, our video games and cell phones and computers. All of these things are breaking down our spine at an accelerated rate. So the question is, can you prevent or lower your risk for spinal degeneration? And the answer is, I believe, yes. And the reason is we know what causes spinal degeneration. Spinal degeneration is caused by, well, number one, damage. And okay, if you have damage from car accidents, slips, falls, all these types of things, you can't prevent that. I understand that you can't go back in time and not be in that car accident. So yes, there are going to be factors, undetermined factors, that are going to play a role in spinal degeneration always. But are there some determined factors? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We see that one cause of spinal degeneration is lack of motion in a joint. So if a joint breaks down, it's not moving through a full range of motion anymore. Then arthritis or adhesions start to get in there, fixations get in there, and then calcifications and what we call osteoarthritis or spinal degeneration can occur. So can we prevent lack of motion or fixations in a joint? Absolutely. There are some things we're going to talk about on this podcast and in the next episodes on how you can prevent adhesions and fixations, starting that process of degeneration. The second thing that we also find, there was a scientist, we talked about Wolff's Law. Wolff's Law is that calcification will lay down in areas of stress. So if the spine is out of alignment, we have altered biomechanics, the spine is not moving properly, we're going to have stress points in those joints. We're going to have areas where repetitive stresses are breaking down the joint from wear and tear. So can we improve your biomechanics, your motion and movement of the spine, prevent stress points from building, prevent Wolff's Law or prevent calcifications and bone spurs? The answer to that is yes, absolutely yes. So if the answer is yes, you can lower your risk factor for spinal degeneration, then it brings up the next question, which is how? How would you do that? And the answer to that is, first, we have to determine what what is a healthy spine? What does a healthy spine consist of? And then we can determine how we can keep and maintain the health of that spine and keep it from breaking down. So that's where we look into the three basic foundational concepts of spinal hygiene. Is we look and we say, people who have a healthy spine, people who have less spinal degeneration and osteoarthritis, what qualities do they have in the spine? And we see, number one, that they have a good alignment. We talked about how when we're out of alignment, we have stress points, we have wear and tear, Wolff's Law. It begins to break down and add calcifications or bone spurring. So if we keep a good spinal alignment, that could be one way that we prevent spinal degeneration, or let me say at least lower risk of spinal degeneration. Then what's the second factor? Well, the foundational premise of spinal hygiene is that the spine should move through a full range of motion in each direction symmetrically. And so we have to develop a specific strategy that you can implement on a daily basis that helps you keep and maintain full range of motion so that you don't get those adhesions, you don't get those fixations, and then you don't start that process of degeneration. And the last thing that we look at, what people who have a healthy spine have is strong, healthy, balanced, and fit muscles surrounding that spine. So you've probably heard of core muscles, core exercises, things that strengthen those postural muscles around your spine. Those types of exercises we want to do on a daily basis as well, so that we prevent deterioration of the muscles, which then leads to further deterioration of the spine. All of these concepts I'm going to dive into a lot deeper in the following episodes, but I just wanted to cover the basics today and let you know the answer to this question is, it looks like yes, we may be able to prevent or at least lower our risk factor for developing spinal degeneration. Stay tuned for a lot more information on that. I'll see you on the next episode.